Hello, I'm architect Latha Raman. I'm here to present about our project, Rejuvenation of the Canal Network of Alappuzha, which won the award in the Urban Interventions category. It is about the rejuvenation of the canal network in Alappuzha city. Good evening to you all. Happy to be here. I think Jayopal and me for the first, 25, 27 years of our practice, we never even attempted joining any of the competitions. Basically, we were laid back in documentation and all that. Now we have got some very enthused juniors who are with us. So they have pushed us to kind of put projects into the competitions and all. So it was nice. It was a good experience. Happy to be part of this. This particular project is something that has been very, not just this project, but I think the sector, because while in all the years of our practice, almost 3 decades, we have always tried to kind of balance our works. On the one hand, I think a good part of our bread and butter comes from doing resorts, which kind of focus on sustainability angle and a lot of institutions and all that. But at the same time, we've always tried to kind of be able to respond to more of socially interesting or kind of projects which can probably trigger off some changes in the society. So this particular one is actually the fallout of several years of work in the water and wastewater sector. So I get into it. So the presentation starts with a video.
Rejuvenation of the canal network of Alappuzha. Dotting the coastline of Arabian Sea in Kerala, India, the quaint town of Alappuzha has often been described as the Venice of the East, with its picturesque canals, backwaters, beaches and lagoons. As the oldest planned backwater town of Kerala, Alappuzha's main waterways which link the Arabian Sea on the west to the Vembanad Lake on the east were once its nerve centers. Unfortunately, with the port losing its commercial importance, road networks and automobiles getting more prominence, Alappuzha's canal network slowly started losing their purpose. Today they have been reduced as easy waste dumping spaces, a cause for major pollution, health concerns and poor aesthetics. In late 2017, on advice of the state leadership, Kila and IIT Mumbai organized the winter school to study and suggest the methodology to address the rejuvenation of the canal network. The team brought in CDD Society of India, CUSAT, and Inspiration Kochi, who sat together and drew up a vision to rejuvenate Alappuzha's lifeline. A vision to clean and rejuvenate its 14 canal sheds, set in position liquid and solid waste treatment systems for over 40,000 households and buildings, create over 10 kilometers of green pedestrian walkways, bringing back vibrant life on the water's edge, move towards efficient water transport network, in the process create several thousand green jobs for a range of skilled as well as unskilled labor.
Yeah, so this was the background for the project and what made our approach different. What we decided is that, rather than when you talk about rejuvenation of a particular water body, the conventional approach might have been to just look at it as a dedicated water body, try to do the cleaning up there and creating some space around it, which is attractive and all that. But we thought with the background that we already had in the sector that it's the better and a more sustainable approach would be a bottoms-up planned approach. Which means that when you're talking about rejuvenation of a water body, you first have to address the issues that are actually what made it decay and die. So which is essentially pollutions, which is both liquid waste and solid waste. You can't kind of separate both from each other. But more importantly, when you look at a large canal, so as you must have seen it, Alappuzha has 2 major canals, the Water Canal and the Commercial Canal, which even if you go today, they're pretty much okay. But why are they getting polluted is because there is each canal is actually like a canal shed, if you use that term. So into the main canal, there are several sub-canals that actually flow into it. And into the sub-canals, there are a lot of main drains which are linked to it. Because traditionally, all these were, one is stormwater drainage systems and also navigable canals long back. So unless you look at the pollution, most of the pollution happens at the drain level. That is, what we let out from from each of the buildings and all that, which flow into the drains, the smaller drains, which go into the bigger drains, which are connected to the sub-canals, which eventually flow into the big canal. So we thought that unless we look at this whole framework and trying to arrest the pollution at source, whatever we try to do in terms of beautification or rejuvenation of the larger canal wouldn't be sustainable on the long run. So that was one major change that we took in the approach of it. The second one was, we all know that unless and until we kind of involve the community, nothing that we do is going to be sustainable. We can do any fancy project or any meaningful project, meaningful and fancy too, but if that has to be sustained, it needs a local community to kind of take ownership. So that was another thrust that we did from the day one. We actually worked with a youth campaign called Canal. So they had a tagline called Thoda Ode Alla, canals are not drains. So they actually started working with us from day one, because from the first presentations we actually involved them in trying to make them understand this whole approach. The third one, of course, we all know as design professionals that what is the problem with our water bodies is that we no longer, especially the canals, the larger water bodies, maybe we are still conscious, people are still conscious that they are an aesthetic element, but our canals, ultimately, if you look at it all over Cochin or anywhere in the world, I mean anywhere in the country at least, they are mostly now reduced to where the backyards are facing. Whether you look at it Alleppuzha, whether you look at it Cochin, what is happening is that nobody kind of looks at the water body as an aesthetic element. So unless we bring back the pride in the water bodies, we are able to communicate that, it is again not going to be sustainable. And the fourth thing is to take a decentralized approach, because we all know that whether it is Alleppuzha, whether it is Cochin, most parts of Kerala are high water table areas. So even if you want to kind of treat your liquid waste, centralized systems are a huge challenge. It is not setting up the treatment system, but how do you actually pipe and take all the wastewater to a particular point, which is why even now Cochin, though we have had development in so many other sectors, we still are so bad in our liquid waste management. There are treatment plants, there is a 10 MLD plant, there is something else getting set up and all that, but they are not even 5% serviced by sewers, which is a reality. Mainly because it's difficult to kind of pipe it in high water table areas. So treatment at source is probably one of the very key factors that we worked on. So this was our approach. And we actually discussed, of course, Thomas Isaac was the local MLA, but in spite of he being in one political party and the local municipality being another, they were a Congress municipality, and there was a very good synergy between them. So we actually sat together and we said that unless we demonstrate one stretch, this is not good. The idea was to look at the whole of Alleppuzha, but we said we'll start with one stretch. Through various deliberations, we finally decided to focus on a 2-kilometer stretch. It's a sub-canal of the Vada Canal. It's called the Municipal Colony Canal or the Chartanad Canal, as it is locally called. 2 kilometers. So these are just details of that particular stretch. We had to do a whole lot of studies to get into it. They included physical surveys, which was actual digital survey of the canal and its immediate catchment, the linkages with other sub-canals and main drains, etc. Identifying drainage bottlenecks, water logging, finding out open spaces that are available in case we need to set up treatment systems. Also the bed profiles of the canals, because many of these canals are not designed so you have it's never a proper gradient. There are ups and downs, which is why you have bottlenecks and localized flooding. We also had to do a lot of socio-economic surveys, which we actually worked with QSAT. QSAT has a campus in Pulingunda near Alleppuzha. So they helped us, and also these summer schools that we had, we got students to actually, because it's nicer to actually involve students in data collection because people are more open kind of sharing data with them. We also did a survey so we had to identify, so the whole intention was to develop a set of replicable model which can then be transferred to the rest of the canal ships, so that eventually the whole of Alleppuzha canal network can be rejuvenated, and this whole model can be taken off to other places also. So we also had to identify who are the main generators. So when you look at bigger bulk generators of liquid waste or solid waste, you have sectors in the private sector also. There will be catering I mean, there was a catering center, there was a polytechnic, there was a marketplace, and so you have to actually segregate between the private sector hotspots and the public sector hotspots. The private sector hotspots, now Pollution Control Board has a rule that anyone who generates more than 10,000 liters of wastewater per day has to set up their own treatment system. So it's basically kind of trying to lobby through the Pollution Control Board to tell them to kind of set up their own systems. Public sector is often the responsibility of the local body, so that had to be segregated. And then of course we did the studies on the water quality and the quantity monitoring. These were all studies. We also did a total photo documentation of how the canal was. So you can see these were some of the pictures before we actually got started. The one on the left end is a bigger, the sub-canal, which is the Chapanada Canal. The other ones are smaller drains which are actually flowing into it. There was one colony there which had a community toilet. It was in an extremely poor condition. Some attempts at solid waste through biogas plants, etc. And then, yeah, based on all these things, we try to work out what would be the kind of a menu of replicable interventions that can be done. So we kind of put it into several compartments. One is the canal level interventions, which is essentially kind of physical cleaning of the canal, etc. So I go into each of it. So one was, of course, the cleaning, desilting and removal of the legacy waste, because nobody at any point has even thought of cleaning these canals. So we started off in summer because that's the time when the flow is minimal. It was a combination of, so some parts were practically dry, so there was a combination of bit of manual cleaning, bit of using the JCBs and all that, and then mechanical systems at the final mouth of, so that top right one is actually at the mouth of where the subcanal meets the water canal, so we could actually bring in that mechanical excavator kind of a thing. And there was a lot of systematic thing on what do you do with the legacy waste. So we had to actually keep it on the side of it, protect it so that it doesn't fall back into the canal, let it kind of de-water it, and then we had to actually separate out the non-biodegradables with the biodegradables. The non-biodegradables were actually collected and taken to the municipality's recycling place. There was a lot of silt which actually farmers were happy to take it because it was very rich in manure. So all that happened in March, April. Just removing the legacy waste transformed the canal. That shows how much solid and liquid wastes are so interlinked actually. So you see different pictures. One on the left end is when the rain started and the flow was considerably improved. And the one on the right side was the dry period. We also kind of had to work on correcting the bed profile of the lake, of the canal in some places. We had to treat the embankment so that further solid waste wouldn't be washed back into the canal. So we did a bit of gabions there. And then another interesting challenge was how do we define the canal committees? So we decided to kind of put these screens at every 250 to 300 meters so that much stretch of it would be taken care of by a canal committee which was there. And the screen needed a lot of engineering because it had to be such that when there is a heavy rain, there is a lot of upstream thing which gets washed off. So we didn't want to kind of get it choked. So this is essential, and that time even if it flows off, it is quite okay because it just then can go off. But dry time is where, so the level of the screens and all were kind of engineered to suit that. Then of course, as I said, when all these canals were essentially stormwater drains and for stormwater management actually, but because of bad engineering, bad detailing, bad encroachments here and there and all that, there was a lot of localized flooding. So we had to identify those hotspots and work out customized solutions for each of these things. And just some of these basic things actually transformed that place without any kind of localized flooding or anything. It was completely dry even during the, after the 2018 floods, in fact, when we both went. This particular colony was actually, there was no flooding. I mean, there was a lot of flow in the sense that it was not that area was not flooded, but this particular space there was no flooding at all. And then, as I said, we actually worked with the Pollution Control Board to identify these solid and liquid waste hotspots or bulk generators in the private sector, and we handheld at least a few of them to set up their own treatment systems. So that they are then only letting off treated wastewater into the canal. The PCB was pretty much very cooperative. And then there is this in-between people, like more than 10 KLD there is a rule. and very small kind of colonies or markets and all come under the local bodies. What happens to the segment in between, small commercial establishment, bigger houses which actually are in plotted developments or like a normal middle class, upper middle class kind of housing, smaller commercial establishments. Right now there is no rule for such, there is no law which kind of binds that, but they also generate a lot of wastewater. So we actually developed a system of prefabricated wastewater treatment modules which actually can treat your wastewater to let it off to less than 30 milligram per liter BOD, which can be safely let off into it. We have done about 25 such demonstrations in Kila's campus in Thrissur. So if anyone is interested in seeing such small models, you can actually visit it. So that was another intervention. And then we had to finally look at the hotspots in the public sector. So one major challenge was there was a colony in this stretch which had about 58 houses. It was ironic that actually this particular colony was, they were rehabilitated municipal scavengers some 40 years back. So when manual scavenging was actually stopped in Kerala, these particular municipal workers were, there was a colony that was set up for them. And it was like row houses, and they had this community toilet which I showed you earlier. And absolutely pathetic because people no longer like to use community toilets. So half of them had set up makeshift toilets. There was no proper water supply. They left. These are the images. I mean, one could actually hardly step into the colony. It was in a really bad condition. So we actually worked with them. We built new toilets with them, but not only giving them a closet or just to take care of their thing, but also bathing spaces and also small place where they could wash their clothes and their vessels and all that. And we gave them probably among the first of its kind a simplified sewer system, which is actually like a localized sewage treatment facility. You can see those lines which are laid with their manholes and all that. And we set up a customized, so just kind of giving them proper toilets and taking care of their wastewater which was flowing into open drains, completely transformed that colony. So these were just images of the same stretch after the treatment system and the drainage facilities were given to them. This was the, I'm not going too much into the technologies, but we have been actually working on a concept called DWATS or Decentralized Wastewater Treatment System, which are treatment modules which is mostly dependent on biological treatment system, which you can scale from as low as a single household to larger, even up to an institutional or campus spaces, to treat your wastewater without any mechanical systems or moving parts or anything like that, but which are pretty much robust and which can be taken care of by local people. So this is a DWAT system which with about 15 KLD capacity that we set up for them. They no longer needed their community toilet, so that was converted into a small hall, which like a library where the children could study or they have their small meetings and all that. We also had to look into the solid waste management, so we gave them a composting system, and it's being maintained. The biogas plant was rejected. These are very recent pictures that we took about, I think a month before or something. You can see that the people have, so we completed the project in 2019. We started just immediately after the floods, and we completed the project in 2019, and this is how the people have completely taken ownership of the place. Again, similar, then we also worked with the local art school, so they came and kind of did a lot of the artwork for us before we actually handed over, which brought in a lot of life to the whole space. And now you can see the people actually sitting in front of their community toilet, where they once even couldn't enter the space actually. And the things are moving on the major canal front, so the cleaning of the Wadi Canal has happened, the embankments have been done. Then what happened was that COVID came, and everything went to a standstill. The government changed. So work is going a little bit slowly on setting up the treatment systems on the mouth of the Wadi Canal. But now there is a lot of interest so this was done as a CSR funded project through KMML, which is Kerala Minerals and Metals Limited. So now even Cochin Shipyard and several of the private organizations are ready to kind of chip in to take up other sub-canals so that the model can be replicated. So those things are moving now. And these are some of the pictures of the formation of the canal committees, explaining a lot of things and all that. And while we are talking about decentralized wastewater treatment system, there is also a need to kind of set up centralized fecal sludge treatment plants, which actually takes sludge from the septic tanks or the decentralized system and treats it. So I'm not going into the technology of it, but this is something that we are working with Alappuzha municipality right now. And of course, the project, so it was nice because after that COVID came and we moved out of the project. But in 2020, Alappuzha municipality applied and they won the Swachh Sarvekshan Award for best practices for small cities actually. Just concluding with a video.
ഒരു അമ്മച്ചെന്നെ വിളിച്ച് ഈ കോളിലൂടെ വരാൻ അങ്ങനെയാണ് പണ്ടത്തെ കാലത്ത് പറഞ്ഞുകൊണ്ടിരുന്നത്. പിന്നെ പണ്ടെന്ന് പറയുമ്പോൾ ഒരു മനുഷ്യൻ ഇല്ലാത്തോണ്ട് കടന്നു വരുമ്പോഴത്തേക്ക് നമ്മുടെ പൊതു കക്കൂസ് അതിന് പണ്ട് ഒരു ആഗ്രഹം പിടിച്ചൊരു സ്ഥലമായിരുന്നു. പക്ഷെ അത് പോയിട്ട് ഇപ്പം എല്ലാത്തിനേലും ഉപരി ഇതിലും ഇപ്പം ആൾക്കാർ മുലക്കച്ചറപ്പിൽ പോകുന്ന പോലെ ആൾക്കാരുടെ പഴയ കായലായിരുന്നു പൊട്ടി ഒഴുകു വരും. ഇപ്പൊ സാറേ ഇപ്പൊ ഇവിടെ ആയിരിക്കും മീറ്റിംഗ് ഒക്കെ നമ്മുടെ അവിടെ ആയിരിക്കും നമ്മുടെ വീടുകളിൽ അരിപ്പണ്ട് ഇതിന്റെ അവസ്ഥ അങ്ങനെയാണ്. പക്ഷെ ഇപ്പൊ ആർക്കും ഒരു മടിയില്ല. ഇവിടെ ഏത് സമയത്തും ആർക്ക് വേണമെങ്കിലും എത്ര വേണമെങ്കിലും എങ്ങനെ വേണമെങ്കിലും വരാം. അത്ര സൗകര്യമാണ് എല്ലാവരും ഉണ്ട്. നമ്മുടെ വീട്ടിലൊന്നും തങ്ങത്തില്ല. കാരണം ബാത്റൂം പൊതുവായിട്ടാണെന്നുള്ളത് എല്ലാം ഉണ്ട്. സ്വർഗരാജ്യം എന്ന് പറയുന്ന പോലെ തന്നെ നമ്മുടെ മണമില്ല, എലിയില്ല, മണമില്ല. കണ്ടെന്ന് നമ്മള് കവിതാക്കാരുടെ വീടിന്റെ ഉടനെ ഇപ്പൊ അതില്ല. അവരുടെ ബാത്റൂം ആയിരുന്നപ്പോഴത്തേക്കും അധികം വെള്ളം മുന്നോട്ട് ബാത്റൂമിൽ കയറുമ്പോഴത്തേക്കിനും ആ കാണിക്കാത്ത പാലുള്ള ഊഴും അത് നമുക്ക് നമ്മുടെ വീട്ടിലിരിക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. അത് തുറക്കാൻ പറ്റില്ല. ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് അനുഭവം ഇങ്ങനെ വലിയൊരു സംവിധാനം അത് ദൈവം തമ്മിലാണ് ഇങ്ങനെ പറഞ്ഞതിന് നേരത്തെ പോലെ ഒരു ഇല എന്ന സംവിധാനം അത് ഏറ്റെടുത്ത് ഇങ്ങനെയൊക്കെ ഞങ്ങൾക്ക് നല്ല രീതിയിൽ ചെയ്തു തന്നതിനും എല്ലാം കൊണ്ട് സാറുമാർക്കും എല്ലാം.
So just spontaneous responses from you. Yeah, that's all. So as I said earlier, this was not like an isolated project that we did. We've actually moved on. We have done worked at least with 3 or 4 other municipalities since then. With Munnar town we have done up a small colony in near Alua, working on so many other things also. We have also co-founded this organization called CDD India, which is based in Bangalore. We have a network of about 23 organizations working on decentralized wastewater, solid waste, etc. And yeah, that's it. Thank you.